So we're on to part two. Part two.
Yes, go listen part one if you haven't.
Yeah, we talk so much that we had to split it into 2 episodes. Okay, so
Yes.
before we get to part two, right, I do want to introduce everyone properly to Edwin, our new lead pastor at the Evolution. And here he is. Hello, hello. Are you going to unmute yourself? Please unmute.
Hi,
Hi.
Pastor.
It's such a weird title, that word. Okay, but anyway, the Evolution has this year, right, transited into a senior leadership team model. That means
Yes.
we're actually kind of throwing out the all old model of a church revolving around one person, okay? So now TiVo is led by a group of us rather than just me. And the goal is to have more lead pastors, but at the moment it is me and Mr. Edwin Cole. Okay. So those of you that don't know him, he took over when Caris went back to work 2 years ago, three years ago. And he came in a few months later, I think.
Yes,
okay, so he's
correct.
been helming the youth and everything growth related and events related in TiVo for the last 2 years, okay? And after those 2 years, beginning of this year, we decided to make it official, and he is now a lead pastor of the Evolution. Yay! Okay, how do you feel? Has it been a good run?
Awesome.
Great.
He's like, what am I supposed to answer? Yeah, okay. So anyway, you'll see him in the future episodes lah.
Yes. Next episode, in fact.
Next episode, yes. Okay, so this is a good segue into the idea that we want to talk about next from Caris's message, okay, which I think was really good and really relevant at this point of time. So Caris's point 2 was a leader serves others by growing people and giving hope, okay? So I want to focus on this particular point today, giving hope, all right? So, Kay, can you tell everybody, where did the idea for giving hope come from? I know it's, again, a throwaway statement, leadership 101. Every leader must be able to give hope to the people that they lead. But for some reason, I feel it's very, the way you put it across and emphasize it this time around was pretty amazing. So you want to tell everybody how you came up with it?
Yeah, this came as I was reading a few leadership books, and they were all talking about leaders got to, a few characteristics, like got to inspire, got to motivate, got to set goals, and then got to give people a sense of hope and future. And as I was reading, I think it just dawned on me that the essence of leadership is really, aside of strengths, aside from the kind of vision that you set, the essence of it is to give people hope for the future, for tomorrow.
And I really felt it was important you introduce this idea, especially on the heels of us doing vision sharing training about leaders, which telling them how to communicate, how to express themselves and their goals for their teams. Because what I find is a lot of leaders, right, young leaders especially, right, confuse these two things, the idea of giving hope and being visionary. And so many leaders feel pressured that they need to be a visionary leader in order to be a great leader. And I feel when you spoke on this at Gathering, you made the distinction quite clear. You separated the two ideas. So can you elaborate for us what is the difference? Because I think it's really going to help people who are listening in.
Yeah, visionary leaders, they have this compelling vision of the future. And it's like when you hear them talk, they are able to paint a picture of a future that is like you have not seen it yet. So like for myself, if I hear a visionary leader share, right, you have this amazement like, wow, the future can actually look like that. I've never ever imagined or thought of it this way. But not all leaders are visionary. So some leaders, I would say, they are more pragmatic leaders. So they have a growth plan, like for the next 5 years, 10 years, they scale up whatever they already have today. So whether you are visionary, whether you're practical, in essence, you are giving hope, the way I see it. Is that hope can be in the form of a vision, it can be in the form of a goal that you're trying to reach, a certain project you're trying to accomplish, a certain breakthrough like the team is working towards. So I think it's very helpful for a leader to know this, that no matter what the kind of leadership you are, whether you're visionary, practical, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to look a certain way. As long as you are able to bring hope and inspire hope to the people that you're leading.
Definitely. And I think the question I want to ask, right, was for you, did you ever feel this pressure? Because I think one thing that happened to Edwin when he first took over, I mean, he's been doing the job for 2 years, but then suddenly we made him the lead pastor. And I remember the first 6 months of it was a lot of anxiety for him to rise to the occasion. So I think I want to ask you this question because up till Edwin came along, you were the main second in command in church for a good decade, right? And you were always the lieutenant, my right hand person, and people knew it. So I want to know for you, right? Did you have the same experience Edwin has been having this pressure of coming up in my shadow as
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. And especially, I don't think I am a visionary leader like CJ yourself. So there are days where I feel the need and the responsibility, like as a leader, that I have got to have a compelling vision to share with people, to inspire them. Yeah.
So how do you deal with it? I mean, give some advice to poor Edwin over here.
He's
as
doing
the new
awesome.
co-lead pastor. Yeah, exactly. He's doing amazing, right?
Yeah, our lead pastor, Edwin, is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but for
all of the senior
myself,
leadership team. Because let me say this, we transited to a leadership team, okay? And it was nothing that they had not already been doing for years and
Right,
years
right.
and years in church. But suddenly, it was like anxiety to the max. Everyone's like, PC, I don't really think I can do this. CJ, this is a little bit scary. And I'm like, what is with all of you and what is with the anxiety? You are killing my excitement over here about this new thing that we're launching into. So Kay, what's your advice to everyone who struggles with it?
For myself, I just deal with it. Sometimes, yeah, because sometimes as leaders, you just have to have faith. You just have to have the courage to just do it. You have to set a goal. You have to commit to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think our advice really to everyone here, right, is don't struggle so much to define. I think am I a visionary leader or am I just a leader giving hope? I think just the bottom line is any kind of leader, whatever you are, operational leader, administrative leader, a pastoral leader, a visionary leader, a more, I don't know, like a counseling type of
Right,
leader, right? The bottom line is you must be able to bring hope to people. You must be able to do more than just throw away encouragement, an encouraging word or encouraging card to people. There must be this quality about you that's able to give hope to your team and say, hey, we can do this. Hey, we can achieve that. But in your own way, in your own personality, in your way that God has made you lah. Yeah, but I will say this too. Okay, let me push back a bit. I don't think I give a lot of thought to being a visionary leader. Yeah,
Because that is a part of who you are. That's your
Does it slip
strength.
out?
So
Does
it
it slip
comes
out?
out when you're not thinking
Even
and you are
when I'm not thinking.
doing it.
Yeah, but I do think when I was younger, so let me say this to all the younger leaders, I think the world has given such a high premium to being visionary,
That's true.
and extroverted, that it becomes this fight of ego to be the most visionary person in the room. And I think even as someone who is naturally visionary, I would say in my 20s, it was a lot of ego mixed up in that. Like, I know that's who I am, but yet you feel this need to overdrive it because that's the way you're supposed to assert yourself as a lead pastor. But I think in the recent years, I find myself actually not thinking about it so much. That if it's in you, it's in you. If you believe in people, you believe in people. Yeah, so I would say to all the leaders here and young leaders here, it's sort of important to define who you are,
Yeah.
but it's not important to label who you are constantly. To let that just go, a little bit. Just do what you're good at doing. Be your strengths, and that is sufficient.
Yes, I agree.
Let's take a couple more questions. Okay, this one comes. Jing Xiang is going to ask on behalf of some people.
Yes, this question is from Aishu, a university student. So you spoke about how leaders are dealers of hope. So what attitudes do we need to have towards hope? Or what perspectives that are important to have so that we can keep our hope?
I think that there are many things that we can do. I think hope essentially is that belief that tomorrow is better than yesterday. Tomorrow is better than even today. And I think one of it we can do is to keep talking about the vision, like the future, to keep putting the goal in front of yourself, to keep painting the picture. It helps us to get through difficult times. It also helps to motivate, to galvanize the people to do something, like to, take one step at a time to get to that goal. Every person I read about, like awesome people I read about, they all have this future that they are holding on to, they are trying to build, that keeps them going. Like Winston Churchill was about freedom, was about resistance to evil. Martin Luther was about equality for mankind. Even for TiVo, our goal is to build a community of inclusivity, of making a difference and making an impact in the community that we are in. So I think we got to keep, painting that picture and build more details into that picture, and that will inspire people. And also, secondly, not just talking about it, but commitment to the vision, like actionable commitment to that future, also inspires hope. Like somehow when you see people just day after day, making courageous commitment, like despite the situation being very gloomy, but still committed to building that future, I think that will inspire like-minded people to come alongside you to kind of build that vision together.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think hope is a very internal attitude and discipline that we gotta have. But it is also being very external with our habits and what we choose to surround ourselves with and to take in, or like what Caris was saying, whether that's in the form of like you create a vision board or you have your vision clearly written down in your notes on your phone and you look at it constantly. I think there needs to be a habit of discipline, like certain external things we do to really keep ourselves going, or
Right.
in order to keep being a dealer of hope. Yeah, so I think let me just throw in a verse here, because often people look at our IG and think we don't quote the Bible enough. So let me just throw a Bible verse. Actually, our sermons have a lot of Bible verses. Okay, let me qualify. Just go listen to them. But Matthew 6:22, I love, because it says the eye is the lamp of the body. That if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be filled with light, will be full of light. So to me, right, I think as a leader, you got to curate who you are around and what you expose yourself to. So I don't surround myself with negativity or negative people. Actually, funny story. I've been going to therapy this year a little bit here and there, and I have a new therapist. And so this new therapist, right, said to me one day, right, you don't complain. I've been waiting 3 sessions for you to complain, about your struggles and all the things, all the pressures and responsibility you have, but it never comes out. So in that moment, really, I did start to ask myself, is it I need to complain more? Like, is there some cycle of complaining I need to complete so that I can go back into positivity? It's just a very funny thing, lah. Okay, but I think for me personally, generally, I don't do a lot of it, because I find complaining over and over and over again starts to influence my thoughts and feelings. And being around complainers also influences my thoughts and feelings, and therefore will influence my attitude and my action towards challenges. So even for me, and let me qualify, I do complain, okay? I complain to my best friends. But when I complain to my team, but when I find myself repeating the complaint too many times, and it's starting to get boring, because sometimes when you complain, you're solving a problem. You're working through the problem, you're talking about a problem, you're actually trying to process how to solve it. But when I find myself repeating myself and getting boring, that's a sign to me to stop, because it's becoming counterproductive. Okay, so I think that is one of the most basic disciplines I think a young leader needs to learn how to cultivate when it comes to hope. Yeah, okay, so start there. But I do, however, want to push this a little bit deeper, because for our senior leadership team in particular, and our core people who have been around very long, right? And that is, because our community has gone through so much these last 5 years. We went through the COVID crisis like every other team and organization did for 3 years. And then after that, just as it was coming to an end, we cycled straight into the crisis of becoming homeless as a church.
Yeah.
And I will say this, our community is very resilient. Okay, but I do also notice this past year that half of our leadership team, especially the more senior ones, we're not as brimming with hope as we used to constantly be. Okay. And I think that's because we're just struggling to solve the problems and try to make sure everybody is okay while we solve the problems. So we are still our hopeful selves, disciplined in our hope, but a lot of our energy is being taken up by problems and solutioning those problems, managing the tensions, that it doesn't really leave much resources left for big hope, exciting
Right.
hope, fun hope. That has been a little bit of a challenge, especially for the ones who have been around longer. Wouldn't you say, Kay? Yeah.
Yes.
Ed, Zihan, can we get you to chime in here? Do you feel that way? Because you guys have been around very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I feel yes, and I think especially coming out from like what you said, like the pandemic, and then I think it affects our community. We have, I mean, in some ways we lost our home. In some ways I mean, we are trying to figure out a new vision, a new future. So it's a lot of like struggle and a lot of work. But then now it feels like we are not moving, but yet we are trying to move. So I think that's like
Yeah.
that the struggle there is that thing that we need a bit discouraged
Yeah, we're
about lah.
stuck
Yeah, we're
again.
stuck.
Yeah. I don't know whether other people coming out of COVID feel that way, that they're still stuck, but definitely for us, we feel really frustrated that we're stuck because we are
Yes.
very like, let's progress, let's move, let's work, let's get things done kind of church. And we are doing that, but it's kind of like, wow, like 80% effort, only 20% result. It's kind of like, yeah, But okay, but let's also hear from the very our super bubbly teammate Zihan.
I know, just thinking that we are like, we have a lot of crises, like
Yeah.
crises one after another. Like even during the pandemic, we have our flood crisis. Then
Yeah, that's
we thought
right.
that everything is done. Then we have we need to move up crisis.
Yeah.
Then after that, we came into a period where we thought we found our home. Then it turned out to be
Now it's been
not the
like,
one.
oh
We
my.
move on to the next one. Yeah, but I think that is the romance. I always remind myself that's the romance. Like we have so many stories to share with people. Our journey is full of excitement, full of up and down, but end of the day is like we know that we will be there. Yeah, but I think maybe just for myself, like every time I see the obstacle as opportunity for something great. For God and the team to work it out together.
Okay, so the secret to getting through difficult times and regaining your joy is be sure have someone that has endless supply of it, like Mr. Keng
Right.
Zihan. Yeah. Okay, but let's also hear from the younger ones or the junior leaders, right? Ashley
Yeah.
and Jing Xiang, right? Actually, what is your perception? Are the leaders, especially the senior leaders, a little low on hope? And let me tell you why I'm asking this question, right? Because me and Cindy, the head of our ministries, was out with Aishu and Vivian one day, and then we, in the middle of dinner, right, just hanging out, right, we felt the need to apologize. I'm so sorry, guys. We're so sorry, youth. We're no longer fun. We're not as exciting as we used to be when you first came to church, because we don't feel fun. We don't feel as buzzy and excited, and like that we have this atmosphere around it that youth are drawn to as much anymore this year. And that is our perception of ourselves. But let's throw it back to you, right, Jing Xiang and Ashley. Is that your perception of the leaders?
So actually, I was looking back at maybe when we are always sharing about the news, let's say about our premise, we've never felt like the situation was hopeless, I think. We've always thought that we had certain options and things we had in mind. So it didn't really feel hopeless or not fun at those moments. Yeah.
Okay. Ashley?
For me, I actually feel that leaders are the people with the most hope. Yeah, but even it's not really like just when it's fun. Like sometimes it's just spending time together with leaders and hearing what they think makes me feel hopeful, and makes, like, even when I'm discouraged, that makes me feel a bit more encouraged. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I find you guys' response very funny to me. And that's why I also think, right, sometimes leaders, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect and to be that dealer of hope, as you used in your sermon and Aishu quoted you. Because even as me and Cindy were just telling them how we're feeling, how we're doing, right? It's very fun. After that, they texted back after that dinner and it was like, we love the leaders so much. You guys are the best. And like, they were so emotional about like enjoying our company and that church is the best and everything is fun. And so I think sometimes leaders, we underestimate our people's ability to deal with our vulnerability. And sometimes I think we underestimate ourselves that we're not dealing out enough hope for people because we don't feel like we're at our maximum, capacity of hopefulness.
Right.
But there's something about the life of a leader that when we are with people, there is that constant, even if we're not okay, like, hey, you are going to be okay. And we're going to be okay. Or the ability to tell ourselves that I don't feel it, but it will be okay because I trust God and I trust people and I trust life that it's going to be all right. Yeah, and so I think that is the walk of a leader. We're not just encouraging. We
Yep.
are, in essence, even on our worst days, a hopeful person. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a few more questions, right? Let's take a question from Vivian and a question from Cindy. I think Edwin and Zihan, you guys have it.
Yes, so a question from Vivian, who just headed out to work and she's also a new leader on the team. She asked, when things are not so optimistic, how do you keep hope? And how do you balance it with being realistic?
So another question from Cindy. She asked that how do we balance staying hopeful ourselves while also being a source of hope for others while we are going through struggles?
So I'm going to answer Vivian's question, right? And that is, Vivian, I think when things are good, right, that's when, as a leader, sometimes you need to worry that your hope is not rooted in being realistic. Like where you need to sometimes assess as a leader whether you're leaning too far into an illusion and not kind of being realistic about where you want to get. Okay, but when things are hard, right, it doesn't take a lot of effort to be realistic. You will automatically get realistic, especially because I know your personality is quite phlegmatic, right? You will lean to be more realistic, generally, and the challenge then becomes growing and disciplining your hope.
Right. For Cindy's question, it can be challenging at times, but as leaders, on most days, you got to have the discipline to keep hope alive in your own heart and also in the teams that you're leading. You do whatever it takes, you do the needful, and to have faith. But I would say if you cross a certain threshold where you are really too discouraged or too bitter, then that's when you need to turn to your friends and look for some help to get you back up again.
Yeah, so one thing I thought it would be very helpful for everyone to hear, right? So everybody, you can unmute yourselves. I want to ask you back the question. Instead of asking me what fuels my hope and, what fuels your hope? What helps you to get out of the funk when you're very discouraged? What helps you to grow it when you need to expand it?
Actually, for me, I think because maybe I'm better at imagining or activating my imagination to think about better positive scenarios. And the other thing I do is also find positive people to be around. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, for me, it's really like just not being satisfied with the now. That there can be like a better future kind of thing. I think firstly is like what we've been saying already, which is getting unstuck. Like the feeling of we can do something. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Anybody
agree.
else?
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, of course, the choleric agrees with the choleric. Actually, there's too many cholerics in this conversation. There's 3 of you today. We're overpowered by you.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, Ashley, go.
I find helpful when like doing things with people, even when we're not doing the same things, but just kind of being people and doing things together, even separately. It can help to like feel like things are moving also.
Okay. I find this very funny. Coming from the girl who always used to tell me constantly that you don't like people. People suck. And you don't need them. Yeah. But you are a person who really loves people, honestly speaking. Okay, Ken. Zihan,
I think for
Mr.
me,
Optimistic.
it's every time I see obstacle as opportunity, like you just do the impossible, like wow, every time we thought we're gonna not make it, but hey, we actually make it. Wow, it seems like it's not gonna pass or it's not gonna go through. Hey, actually, we actually made it possible. I think that is the excitement from each of the milestones, yeah, that we go through.
So Vivian, to answer your question, this is an example of someone who is so optimistic sometimes need to be rooted in realism. Okay, but very important. You see, this is the place he has in our team, right? He's very important to the team in this way, When everyone is discouraged, he picks us up, Okay, so I think I wanted to do a little bit of a lesson here today, right, for everyone to help you out with this idea of hope, right? I think there are a couple of factors, like key things that you can use to kind of help yourself when you're going through a difficult time and you're struggling to be more positive about things. Okay, so the first thing is, I think number one, all of us needs to take into account our personality type.
Right.
Okay, like what I joked about just now, like all the cholerics, right? They are people who need movement. They cannot, of all the personalities, they are the worst at staying still. The dominant choleric personalities. They need to move. They are also really discouraged when they encounter a problem they can't solve. So I think for all those of us that are like that, right, especially if you're choleric, you need to get out of problems you can't solve. Because the thing about choleric people is they usually their focus is solving a problem. So they'll keep going at the problem over and over again and get frustrated and discouraged without realizing that, hey, this is a tension that's not going away. It's something you need to accept and live with. And so the best advice I can give sometimes to the cholerics is, sometimes if you are in that kind of scenario, you need to pivot. You need to go and change your environment, change your situation, like go do something new. Go focus on a goal that other people are solving, so that you feel movement, you feel that things are changing, because that is very crucial to your personality. So different ones of us, right, we need to know what really is our, what we need in order to have hope. Okay, the second thing I would say is passion. You need to go and do what your passion is. And I don't mean sometimes the big passion. So if you ever listened to one of our UCH episodes, right, I ever talked about the difference between hedonic joy and eudaimonic joy. Eudaimonic joy is when we live by our purpose, we live for our calling, and we get satisfaction from what floats our boat, okay? But hedonic happiness is,
Yeah.
I don't know, the thrill we get from eating good food or going to travel and a new experience. Now, ideally, most of your life, 70%, you do need to do the eudaimonic. But sometimes it could be as simple as we need to take a break. We need a moment to ourselves to go and enjoy something and refresh. We need a brain break. So for me, it's been a very busy period. And sometimes I forget to do those things. And sometimes it can be as simple as I'm going to have lunch by myself and eat a bowl of ramen. Actually, ramen is my thing. I always go and eat ramen alone because I just want to enjoy both noodles by myself and not talk to anybody, listen to a podcast. And usually I'll turn off my handphone, or I will silence my handphone for that 1.5 hours and just relax. Or sometimes if I don't have time, 15 minutes, I'll sit down and do some mindless activity so that I can take a break. So for me, that falls under the category of passion, finding a way to do something that makes you happy. Okay. The third thing is discipline of mind and action. And I actually, if you have to use P, I would say that is the function prayer serves in our lives. Prayer is a form of disciplining your hope and your action. So when you go through the mechanism of prayer, what do? You pray, you activate your faith, you talk to God and let Him renew your mind, make you see things in a more positive light. You check your bad attitudes and your wrong negativity and you listen to what God has to say, right? There's a transition when you pray. You go from lamenting into praise. And that is its discipline when you do it regularly. But at the same time, right, let me break this too. 'Cause I think too many Christians, right, they only see prayer as an internal thing. Prayer is also action. For me, the Lord's Prayer is action. It says, give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us as we forgive others. Action. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And then let your kingdom come on earth. So there's an action part of prayer that I think is very important to know, because really, if you go and listen to brain research, right, action actually gets us out of anxiety. Whenever we are anxious, it's because internally our brain is just going round, 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 round. But the moment the body moves into action, right, does something to solve the problem, where instead of going, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, okay, then I will go research and learn how to do this. I will do something or ask for help, or I will write down the problem and solve it. Like I will start to do something about this. Then the brain switches, and it cannot stay in anxiety. It switches to logic, right? And so the anxiety stops and the discouragement stops, because in the moment you're doing something. Okay, so I think that's the function prayer has, when you take your internal life and you put it into action. Okay, then finally, last thing is, of course, people. Being around the right people really helps. For many of you here, I think treasure your leaders, because they are the people that deal in hope in your life. They tell you to believe in yourself. For the teams here, every team needs a hyper positive individual, because they are important. It's not always solving problems. Sometimes you just need the injection of positivity in the team. So surround yourself with the right people.
So we have a next question from Clement and Christine, which Ashley has it.
Yes, a question from Clement Christine, who are leaders, and it covers both giving hope and growing people. So Clement asks, what do we do if we are the people-pleasing kind of personality? And Christine asks, how can leaders maintain their authenticity in serving others, being growing them and giving hope, while making sure that we don't overgive?
Okay, you want to answer Christine's one first?
Oh, sure. As a leader, you will always be a giver, like I find, never a matcher. You are always in a position where you have to invest, you have to believe, you have to, speak encouragement first. And it's also because you have something to offer to the teams that you are leading, and that's what makes you a leader. So you'll always be a giver. I think leaders tend to overgive when they are not confident, or they are insecure, or maybe they are fearful to lose the person or some other reasons. So they may start off loving them and giving to them, but then somewhere down the road, they become insecure, or they are scared to lose the person, or they are scared to be disapproved of. Then that's when it goes into the overgiving realm. As a leader, I think that's when we have to take a step back, and also to have the courage to take a step back, to know what's best for the person.
Yeah, I just fully believe that leaders are not at our best when we are afraid about people. I think a healthy accountability is good. That leaders should be held accountable to be a good leader, to be a good mentor, to be a good coach. But I think the moment it becomes a situation where the leaders fear the people that they lead, or fear losing them, or fear offending them, that person is no longer leading, the other person is. It's funny, this is the advice I give to parents too when they come to me for help with their kids. And I find it's the same thing, right? Parents, and it's even with parents who are really good parents, who have values, who have standards, that want to raise their kid well, who know how to discipline, right? But every now and then the fear slips in, especially in the teenage years, right, when youth are rebelling and they're like, I hate you and I don't want to listen to you. And then parents get scared, and then they compromise their standards.
Right.
They start to overcompensate with their child, and then that's when things kind of go wrong. Yeah, so I would say, you see, parents are leaders as far as the kids are concerned. And I think the same applies to teams, the same applies to bosses at work. There's a degree where you need to love people more than you need to be liked by them. Yeah, but again, are very dangerous, because if you're not a good leader, then and you're a narcissist, then that's when it could probably go wrong. Yeah, okay. But so to answer Clement's question also, I think people pleasing as a leader, right? Or generally just people pleasing, it actually can be a good thing. Okay, people pleasing and insecurity can sometimes be the opposite of being a know-it-all or a narcissist. I think insecurity can help you to be humble, to be open, to be curious, to be willing to learn, to be more prepared when you walk into the room, to be excellent. And I think sometimes that is why women are so excellent and over-prepared, because of that self-doubt. Okay, so I think, right, too long in the leadership world, in the Western world, as far as organizations are concerned and leadership is concerned, right, the value has been confidence, overconfidence.
Right.
To the point that arrogance gets promoted, and you watch every, I don't know, TV show or reality TV show, narcissists are getting promoted. I mean, right now our world is in a mess because there are too many narcissistic leaders running it. So I actually think insecurity is really healthy, to have. I think it's only bad when it's extreme, when it paralyzes you, when it makes you a pain to work with and to mentor because you are too intense, you are too much, you are too needy, you are too high maintenance. And I think definitely there have been occasions where I've been like that. I think nearly every youth is like that when we're young, because we're so insecure. Youth are very high maintenance. That's why teenagers are high maintenance. But generally, I think you want to keep it in a healthy zone, and you want to teach youth, you want to teach adults to keep it in a healthy zone. Now, I do want us to get, finally, a little bit, at least touch a little bit on the idea of synergy, right? Because it's a big word in our church, a super important word. If you don't know this, TiVo, then you need to remember, okay? So just to quote myself for a moment, hopefully not so narcissistically, but I always like to say this, that a leader that can strategize is good, but even better than that, in TiVo, you need to be a leader that can synergize. Okay, so to summarize for everyone, Kay, could you, because it's a very big topic in TiVo, but for you, you chose to focus on a couple of things during your message. Can you tell us what are the two things and why you chose to focus on it?
Yes, the two things are, first, collaboration, and then the second one is results. So collaboration, I was talking about how to synergize. You got to learn to collaborate with one another. You got to appreciate each other's strengths. You got to know your role and your place in a team in order to contribute well. And results is, as long as the team is laser focused on the results, the goals that they want to achieve, then the team will be able to come together and do whatever it takes to synergize to reach there.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions around that topic, right? So Ashley, you want to give us some of the questions from the youth team?
Yes, the first question is from Riley, who is currently studying uni. She asked, how do we create synergy in the youth team when we are always working with new people coming in? Does the existing team need to adapt to the new people? And the second question is from Darius, who is currently in JC. He asked, how do we work with people outside of our TiVo community who have different values from us?
Okay, so I want to answer this by saying these are two different scenarios, but essentially they are the same question. There is the group, there is the individual, and then there's the issue of values, okay? So what I find is when it comes to a community, okay, so we'll talk ideal situations right now. Every community should ideally have some clearly defined values that connects all of us. Okay, values from which we derive vision, values by which we come together. Okay, now when that is in place, right, as it is in place in TiVo, then when an individual arrives into our community, they should be able to feel it, hear it, see it, sense it, even if they don't sit through introduction to our values class.
Yeah.
Okay. And they should more or less, right, from being around us, be able to make a conscious or unconscious decision, right? Whether we are aligned and this is a place that they want to be a part of. Okay. Now, of course, this is easier with adults, I think, because adults tend to have more clearly articulated values, generally, okay, or at least think that they have they are clear on their values. Okay, but with youth, right, I think the tricky thing in the youth church is youth are at an age where your values are still information. And so sometimes it can be a little bit trickier, but I do find values still win out, whether a youth stays or doesn't stay. Yeah. So the only difference is I think church gives them an opportunity to practice their values, the good values more often. And hopefully at some point it becomes set in their life and less movable. So while it's information now becomes anchored down. Okay, but again, I find generally, even with youth, right, those who stay or don't, right, it still boils down to alignment lah. Okay, so for example, right, I don't care what people tell me when they first arrive in EVO. It doesn't really matter to me as a leader. Usually, when they first come, they'll say, wow, church is so cool. I love the messages and I like this and you all are very warm and blah, 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 blah. It really doesn't matter what they say, So a lot of leaders come to me, hey, see this person, they're so excited. I'm so excited that they came and they said this. And they gave us, 11.10 in the first impressions card. And I go, great, yay. Especially as a new leader, I encourage them, good job, keep going. But in my value system, not in a jaded way, I will always just say, we will see. Okay, because it doesn't matter what people say, usually whether you align or not will start to come out over time. And if you start to disalign, it will also start to come out over time. You either come closer or you will go further. And if you come very close, then you will become a leader and core member. If you diverge too far, we will have a little bit of a breakup. Okay. Now, of course, it's more complicated than that, but generally, this is how it works out. Will you agree, Kay?
Yes, in our church, I find that the ones that tend to stay longer, they tend to have very similar anchor points. So as a church, we are diverse, definitely, whether our background, age, and our work, our studies, etc. But there are a few common anchors that draws us together. For example, we all, as our community, I realized that we all want to do good. We all want to be a good human being. We don't like drama. We are less confrontational kind of people. We are less provocative kind of people. At best, reasonably confrontational. We like to be people. Like to be people of service. We like to do things. I think by now you can tell that we are very hardworking. We like to do actionable, items, checklists. I think for us, success also is not enough. We are people that we must be generous. We must be significant, impactful. And I think also given that there are a lot of reasons why people are attracted to our church and community. They love that we are warm, we have inclusive leadership, we are cool, we have a cool vision, we are creative, our messages are awesome. But I find that people stay only if they are aligned or they grow to be more aligned. We don't need to share every single value in the value system. But and sometimes people get too caught up there must be a lot of similarity in order for people to come together and to stay. But generally, if there are one or two very important common anchor values, it's a lot easier to gel and it's a lot easier for you to stay and assimilate into the community. And there are also certain values, by their own nature, for example, empathy, maturity, curiosity, growth. And if you have these, then it's even easier for you to kind of be part of the community.
Yeah, I agree. Because those values have a lot more room for growth, a lot more room for openness, a lot more room for adaptability. And I think adaptability is a very good quality to have in relationships because it makes alignment a lot easier. There's a lot more flexibility also in the relationship. Yeah, because sometimes I find people can be too rigid.
It's true.
So and they think that they are not aligned. They think they don't share same values as us, but actually they do. But because something in their thinking has a limited
Box them
definition
up.
of certain
Yeah.
things, then they start to think, oh, actually we don't gel and stuff like that. So I find that certain qualities tend to make it easier. So I would say if you're a smart leader building your team, okay, so this is to all the CGLs and our youth team, right? If you're a smart leader and you understand this principle of alignment and this nature in human beings that we gravitate towards people with the same values, then you will spend most of your time, right, in terms of outreach, finding people with as much alignment and common anchor points as possible.
Right.
Because those people will grow the easiest in TiVo and they will stay the longest. So you want to spend the most time finding people of alignment, not finding people to change. So I'll say for you guys, right, just go find people with as much alignment as possible, youth with as much potential for alignment as possible. Okay, so for Riley, I will say this, right, be very clear on what you value and believe in, be very clear on the values here at the Evolution, and what you uphold and stand for, because including people doesn't mean diminishing your values in order to include them. You see, I think personality and differences and different skill sets and different life experiences, that is where we should have as much inclusivity as possible to learn from each other and grow from one another's interaction with different people. But as far as our values are concerned, those to me are anchor points. Those shouldn't shift. Like when you come to this community, this is what we're building. We're not building a generic church that has no form and function. We have a certain calling. God put us here for a certain reason. You know, every church has a different function and reason. Every community has a different purpose, and this is our purpose, and you need to know it and build it. Okay, so that's for when people come in.
Yep.
Now for Darius, right, it's a different scenario, right? When you are the individual who now you are from a community, you have certain values, certain alignments, then those values come into tension when you have to now, right, spend extended time in a community with different values than you do. Okay, and this is where, right, there are a couple of ways to interact with that, right? Number one, you can't always expect other people to change their values. So when you go out to work, when you go to school, when you go to a certain CCA, right, I'm under no illusion that you can immediately change the situation. I think you should try, but you have to be very realistic about what you can and cannot do. Okay, and I think then, which brings to the next point, which is, if you can't change their values and their culture, then you have to figure out how to stay yourself amidst that contradictory culture. Okay, now how do you do that? Number one, you got to define your values clearly for yourself. Write it down. Okay. Number two, you need to think through what is flexible and what is not flexible. You know, what is there room for? Like, I don't need to fight everything. What do I? But then after that, also, what must I stand up for where there's no compromise? I mean, for example, if you hear your friends talking in a sexist way and derogatory towards women, you know, what do you do in that moment? Do you say something? Do you walk away? Okay. What is safe to be curious about, open and learn from somebody with a different value system or a different perspective than you? Because actually, you know, still can learn, you know, something. But you must be very careful to filter it through your values. Take the good stuff. Don't adopt the bad stuff. You know, take the good qualities or the good skill sets, but don't adopt the wrong values. Okay? Can
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Ashley, you have another question from Aishu.
Yes, she asks, how do we inspire or align a team to a goal that people might not necessarily have the heart and excitement for?
Okay, so I'm going to assume again now from what I know of Aishu, right, is like what happens when this happens at school, or let's say for the adults, what happens when it happens at work, okay?
Yeah.
So when it comes to leading at work, remember, we're leading in TiVo, we're talking about ideal scenarios of leadership and team building. But you can't necessarily force people to comply with that when you're at work, especially when they have different values and they have different vision. Okay,
Yes.
so when you don't share the same values and vision, right, then you have to spend a lot of time hyping people up. To rely on pure, temporary, in the moment hype to motivate people. Okay, I think the other way in is you have to then pander to what is their value system and what is their passion. So if it's, I don't know, a group of adults who want to get home at 5:30 p.m., then as a manager going to say, guys, I know, right, your priority is to get home after work. Then let's do this quickly and fast and with as little mistakes as possible, and we can all get home. Yes! And they will go,
Yay.
yes. Okay, so I think the wider the gap in terms of values and priorities, right?
Yeah.
The more hyping up you have to do, the more pandering to people you have to do. And it's like more management than actually vision sharing. Okay,
Yes.
but if the people you have in your team, right, share enough of the similar values,
Yep.
then whatever you share is going to inspire them generally. So you inspire them to do things well. So you just go try it at school, I tell you it works. Okay, that's the way it goes. So if they don't share enough of the same values and vision, don't waste your energy feeling frustrated too much. Just understand that that is the pragmatic nature of how it works. That leaders should be able to understand this nature about teams
Yep.
and people and use it to your advantage, so you waste less emotional energy being frustrated, like, why won't you get this done? Why don't you have the same passion as me? So even for me as a leader, right, when I see people like that in my team, I know immediately, because I'm building an idealistic vision.
Yeah.
Then I know, oh, you're not suitable to be on my team. I need to find other people. I need to promote other people. Yeah, so I'm just very pragmatic about that. I cannot force people to follow me or to be a part of the team. They need to want to be there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we also have some questions from the adults.
Yep. Zihan and Jing Xiang.
Yes, a question from Rebecca, our super mom. She actually asks, how do we build synergy with our wider Connect group with different life stages and priorities in life?
And Helena's question, what is the kind of culture and leadership style adults should have, not just in our zone, but in any church?
Wow.
I'm going to leave Kay to answer the very difficult one for Helena. But for Rebecca, right, I'll keep it short, right? I just think three things: empathy, inclusion, compassion. Just extend empathy to people who are at different life stages. Try to include them in your life as much as possible, and have compassion for their struggles as much as your own. Which I think you're doing very well already. I've been really impressed how you and Andrew always make space in your home for the singles, and that you spend as much time with them as you do your friends who are going through the same stage of life or starting young families. So I would say just keep doing that, lor. And also remember, right, that these three things also apply to you. That you also need to sometimes have friends that understand what you are going through, and singles need to give you space to understand what you are going through, and yeah, people that are different from you. So I feel that this is a two-way street: empathy, inclusion, and compassion.
For Helena's question, we don't know about other churches, but for us, what kind of culture? I would say ideally to be radical, whereby our lives is bigger than just ourselves. Our empathy, our compassion, our love stretches beyond just our own circle of loved ones or our own circle of family and friends. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think Helena is asking a very valid thing, right? Because the adults are at a stage where they are sort of transiting into figuring out what are the adults in TiVo going to look like in future. So
Yep.
I wanted, Kay, for you to kind of round up this episode, right, by talking about some content that you got from a particular book about team.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, as well as preparing this message, I actually came across this book. It's called Five Dysfunctions of a Team by the writer or the author Patrick Lencioni. And he was talking about teamwork. He started off talking about teamwork, how this is actually a word that's been thrown around a lot, but actually genuine teamwork is rarer than we think. Whereby team is not just a group of people who come together or happen to work together, but they are actually a group of people who share common goals, common rewards, and responsibility. And it requires an individual to set aside their personal needs for the greater good of the team. Teamwork also requires courage because you need to trust, you need to have mutual accountability. You cannot be a silo and you just do your own thing, but you got to actually depend on one another to have interdependence.
Yeah, and so if you ask me what is the ideal, right, for CGs in our church, right, I think the same feeling that you get from EVO as a whole, from the core leadership team, this idealistic, let's work together, let's work through things together, let's make something great happen, let's be committed to this,
Right.
let's be accountable to one another, and then like let's make results happen for our vision. Like I feel that it's so important for that to be translated to each of the CGs, right? Because each of you is a microcosm of the macro. And so this needs to filter down to, I think, your CG. So if you ask me, right, every church got different things, one leadership style, the way they build their church. But for us, right, I think we're not here to just have a church where a group of people happen to come together and have no choice but to work together. Because teams cannot be great like that. It's not possible. And that is why actually there aren't a lot of great teams in the world. Because there aren't many great teams there aren't many people with this idealistic thing of we want to create something amazing. We want our group to feel amazing when we're in each other's presence. We want to accomplish something great. Yeah, so I think the adults, right, especially, I don't know, Christian adults, right, who come from churches, right, growing up in church, even for me, right, it's just like, wow, we just get slammed together and we think that a great thing is going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. It's deliberate effort law. So there are 5 things, right, that Lencioni talked about, right, that are
Causes team to
necessary
fall
for team,
apart.
and also a team can fall apart if they don't have it, right? Okay, you want to tell everybody
Correct.
about that?
So the 5 things are, first one is when a team has an absence of trust, then they fall apart. Second is a fear of conflict. Next, a lack of commitment. Next one is avoidance of accountability. So like the team has, maybe communicated a certain standard that have been set forth, but avoiding accountability, then the team falls apart. Last one is inattention to results.
Yeah, so I actually think, right, this is a good place to land, right? Because I think this is a great 5-step assessment.
Correct.
5 qualities that every team should assess. I mean, I'll be looking at this in terms of our team as well in future, because I do really think when Karis was taking me through these 5 points, hey, this is a really good framework to ask yourself whether you have potential to build a great team. Yeah, and any lack of 1 or 2 or 3 of these qualities, right, then we really need to assess, right, are we bringing in the right people? Are we becoming the right people that are necessary to achieve greatness as a community law? Yeah, so I would take these 5 things: trust, healthy conflict, commitment, accountability, attention to results. I would go ask myself, am I those things? Because when you want to change a group, then these things need to be in you first. If you want these things in the group, then you as a leader has to have these things.
Yes.
If you as a core member want to see a better CG, then you need to have these things.
Yeah.
And if the team doesn't have these things, right, then a leader also needs to assess, and the team needs to assess, okay, are we going to grow, or do we need to let other people take a step up and some people need to take a step down? Because that is what is necessary if you want to achieve something amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. And I think, Kay, that's a good place to land for this episode.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, the whole team, for joining us today. We hope that you found it fun and that some of the content here was helpful. And we'll see you at the next episode. Bye.
Bye.